about some of these organelles. So first off, what is an organelle? It's a part of a cell with a job to do. Have you guys studied cells in elementary school?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you have.
Just a little. Like we looked in under a microscope in 5th grade, and
So you just learned the basics. Do you know the differences between a plant and animal cell?
No.
All right. So
Yes.
some people do. All right. In 5th grade. All right. So if I have two cells here, one is a plant cell, one is an animal cell. Does anyone know which is which? You confident in your answer?
Yes.
Yeah, Joe, which is which?
The one on that side?
The left?
Yeah.
That's the left.
That's the plant cell.
Yes, this is the plant cell.
Yeah.
This is the animal cell. What told you that, Joe? How did you know?
The other one's green.
Okay, one thing that can tell you is color. So the color of a cell, plant cells are often green because they contain chloroplasts, and animal cells are not. Anyone have another factor that tells you which is which, Jared?
Plant cells have layers and rings.
Okay, around the outside? Is that what you mean? Yeah, plant cells has this thick outer layer. It actually has a name, we'll talk about it in a second. It's called the cell wall. So this thick layer, that's the cell wall, that tells you it's a plant cell. The animal cell doesn't have that thick layer. The other thing is shape. Animal cells are often sort of round or blobby shaped and flexible. Often plant cells are angular or rectangular in some way. All right, so let's start with some of the organelles. Now the cell wall, it's only found, it's not in the animal cell.
You have to draw that.
Yeah, draw that arrow. It is found sometimes in bacteria or mushrooms and things like that, fungi. But when we talk about cells, we're basically just going to talk plant or animal. So this one is only in plant cells, and it's made of a material that's called cellulose. The cellulose is like a thick, durable material. It's what makes up the cell wall. The cell wall is very strong and stiff. It gives the plant its outer layer, helps protect it, and also gives the plant its shape. So the cell wall protects and supports the plant as well. Okay, so that's the cell wall. Now, what is a membrane? What does that word mean?
Oh, I've heard that.
No, Joe?
It's every animal has it.
Well, just a membrane in general, not so much cell membrane. A membrane is, Karina, what is it?
Oh wait, no.
Jared? Your hand was in the wrong way.
I was gonna say it's like the skin almost of the cell.
Yeah, it's a thin. A membrane is any really thin, flexible layer. The cell membrane is a thin, flexible layer that surrounds the cell.
What the heck?
So,
I'm not drawing through my words.
yeah, draw through your words. So, the cell membrane, in the animal cell here, it's this outer layer. But plants have a cell membrane too, it's just the next layer in from the cell wall. So it's this next layer in is the cell membrane.
Like the top of it, kind of?
Like if it's like a layer, like you have the outer, the cell wall, then inside. Like, did you ever peel a hard-boiled egg?
Yes.
You peel off the shell,
There's like a
there's a very thin layer that's
Yeah.
next inside. The shell would be like the what? Cell wall, and that thin stuff you peel off would be like the cell membrane.
I'll have to remember that next time I peel off a hard boiled.
And the cell membrane is actually what controls things moving into and out of the cell. Because certain things can go into the cell, certain things cannot. It's the cell membrane that controls that. Filling up most of the inside of the cell is a material called cytoplasm. And cytoplasm is, holds all the other parts of the cell in place. It's kind of a liquidy sort of material. Did you ever have that dessert when it's like Jell-O, but inside is like little chunks of fruit and stuff? If you think about that dessert, the Jell-O part would be like the cytoplasm, and all those little chunks of pineapple and grapes and stuff. That would be the other organelles sort of suspended in there.
Why do you always have to compare to stuff that's like rather really good or really
I don't
bad?
know.
The purple?
So cytoplasm fills up the cell, holding everything in place. So when I look here at this this is an actual picture of two cells under the microscope. First, raise your hand if you can tell me, do you think these are plant or animal cells?
Animal.
Karina?
Animal.
Yeah, animal. They're a thin layer. They're kind of roundish, flexible. So yeah, these are animal cells. So what would you call this outer layer?
Cell membrane.
Yeah, that's the cell membrane. Only the plant cells have the cell wall. Now, does anybody have any clue? Could anyone name another organelle that these dark circles are? If you know any organelle in a cell, you may know this one. Karina? Yeah, that's a nucleus.
Wow.
So, this is the last one we'll talk about today, the nucleus. So again, this is another picture, plant or animal cell?
Wait,
Animal.
Is it nucleus like the nuclear bomb?
It's the same word, but it's used in two different ways. So it's not the same nucleus that's like nuclear bomb. When you learn about chemistry next year, you'll learn about the nucleus of an atom, but it's a completely different definition.
Okay.
So, the nucleus is a pretty large organelle usually. It's usually circular or oval in shape.
Why does ours have more pictures?
Sorry, I'm going to show you in a minute. And the nucleus is really important. Now, sometimes people refer to it as the brain of the cell, but I mean, it doesn't really think, but it does sort of control and direct the activities of the cell. Because there's something very, very important inside of the nucleus. You know what it is?
The brain.
Maggie, you know?
I had a question.
Well, hold on. What is inside of the nucleus that allows it to control and direct the activity of the cell? Okay, Brandon? No, it's not the brain. Okay. Close. What are they made of? Anybody know? What's stored in the nucleus?
The atoms? I don't know.
The nucleus of the DNA.
There we go, the DNA.
Well,
The DNA of a cell is stored inside of the nucleus. And it's the DNA that determines what a cell is like, what it does, how it's built, and so on. DNA is extremely important. It's all held within the nucleus. So this whole thing is a cell. This is the nucleus. If we enlarge it, we see that the nucleus is kind of like a cell of itself. It has a layer around the outside called the nuclear membrane. Okay? This is an actual microscope picture of it. This is the nucleus.
How do you take those pictures on microscope?
Just
Hold
you
the
can take
camera up
pictures.
to the
Yeah.
microscope.
So, the nucleus, some of the parts,
Oh,
the outer layer of the nucleus is called the nuclear membrane. Just like the outer layer of the cell is the cell membrane. So the nuclear membrane sort of keeps the nucleus separate from the rest of the cell. Maggie?
What are the pointy things? The silver pointy things?
Which ones?
Like the.
These?
No.
Over here.
Yeah. What
Oh, we'll
are
get to those later on. They're golden nuggets. So, inside of the nuclear membrane, there are other things as well. And the nuclear membrane determines what goes into the nucleus and what does not.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff right here.
Yeah, inside of the nucleus are chromosomes. Chromosomes are where our DNA is stored. A chromosome, it looks kind of like this X shape when they're all wound up. They contain our genetic information.
What's the other stand for?
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, I'll go back. Deoxyribonucleic acid. And so DNA in these chromosomes actually has all the information that make you who you are. If you were to take out one single tiny blood cell or a skin cell from your body, it'd be microscopic, you wouldn't be able to see it. But inside that cell is the nucleus. Inside of that nucleus are your chromosomes. Those chromosomes are made of DNA, and that DNA tells exactly who you are, makes you look exactly the way you look. Okay, determines parts of your personality and various things. And so all that information is in that tiny, tiny little cell.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's stored in the chromosomes. Then finally, the last thing, this inside of the nucleus, this dark area here, this dark area here, it's called the nucleolus, and it means little nucleus.
So it's like the nucleus is
Kind of, and it has a certain job to do. It makes another organelle. It makes an organelle that's called the ribosomes.
This is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of vocabulary in this unit. Because you're going to have to know these organs, organelles, and you have to know what they do.
Oh my goodness.
Gracious.
Oh my.
All right, so we're going to stop with the nucleus. Does anybody have any questions about it?
I have a wild